Is there such thing as perfect bread? We will find out. What a lovely day to bake. Moin, my name is Arne, German hobby baker who's living in Luxembourg. In my last videos, I've shown you what influence crust and crumb have on the taste. Since I was not 100% satisfied with my last bread, but the direction was right, I made a mix of the first and the second bread. With 10% old toasted bread and 10% khorasan wheat, I got the perfect combination this time. The bread is simply delicious in every way. So let's get started. This is from Luxembourg with Loaf. The evening before we want to bake, we create our levain by combining 80 grams of flour with 80 grams of water and 8 grams of active sourdough starter. We mix everything together with a spoon, and once it's combined, we mark the height with a rubber band and let it ferment overnight at room temperature on the countertop. There's another thing we want to prepare the evening before. We want to toast our old bread. Therefore, I'm taking here 80 grams of old bread, which I'm spreading here on a baking sheet, and this goes into the oven. You see the heating element is glowing on top of the oven. I've turned on the barbecue or the grill function, and this will now roast for 1 minute on each side. After 1 minute, it's time to rotate the breads. We want to have that dark toasted aromas in the bread, so that's totally looking good. This goes in again for another minute. So after 2 minutes, they can get out of the oven. They're looking quite nicely, not too much burned, even though on the camera they're looking quite black, but that's totally fine. I'm now taking here some water. That is actually the water that I'm going to use in the main recipe. So I have used 500 grams of the water I'm going to use tomorrow. And I'm adding the bread for soaking overnight into that water. This goes now into the fridge. That's the next day. It's time to prepare our main dough. The levain has beautifully risen overnight. That is really looking good. We add 140 grams of additional water to the recipe, the old bread and the water. We need 640 grams of wheat flour, 80 grams of khorasan wheat, and 16 grams of salt. And I'm using here the khorasan wheat because I used it already in my first video, and that was totally awesome from the taste. And then I'm taking a mixer and mix everything very nicely until there's no bigger piece of bread left. It should be really smooth in texture. So we can then start mixing all the ingredients. So first of all, the bread water mix goes in. It maybe doesn't look really nice, but the smell is really gorgeous, and the taste also later will be really amazing. Then it's time to add the flour as well as the khorasan wheat, and then we add our levain. That is really nice, active and bubbly, as you see here in the picture. Once these ingredients are in, it's time to start the engine of the mixer. We mix at low speed for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, it's time to increase the speed of the mixer, and then we slowly integrate the remaining water. And the salt also goes in at that time. And we will mix for another 5 minutes and try to incorporate the remaining water step by step. I've speeded up the mixer at the end, and then after 60 minutes in total, the dough looked like that. And here I'm trying to do a window pane test. So that looks quite nice. So this goes now into a plastic box where it can rest for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, it's time for coil folds. And therefore I wet my hands and pull the dough up and move it over, rotate the box and do the same thing again. This will rest for another 30 minutes and then we do a second set of coil folds. You should always do these stretching techniques in the first 2 hours. This is where the most gluten development is achieved. After another 30 minutes, it's time for the third set of coil folds. It's really nice, no dough sticks to my hand, and that means the gluten development is quite nicely ongoing. And then after another 30 minutes of rest, we do the last set, the fourth set of coil folds. After that, the dough will ferment for about 4 to 6 hours at room temperature. As you see here, the dough has nearly doubled in size. This is what we want. It looks really nice and wobbly if you shake the dough container. There are some bubbles on top, so it's time now to dump the dough container. But first of all, we put some flour on the countertop. I want to make 2 loaves of bread, that's why I'm taking my dough scraper and basically divide the dough into 2 portions. And what I'm doing now is I'm forming some round dough balls. This is needed because the dough has now relaxed for the last hours and we want to get back some tension. We do the same thing with the second dough ball as well. And once this has been done, it's now time for my speed shaping technique that you may have seen already in my previous videos. So first of all, I'm adding a little bit of flour into my bannetons and as well as on the loaves. I only need 1 surface to base sticky and that's the bottom one. So then I'm taking my dough scraper and flip the dough in my hands, and all I need to do is just squeeze the dough together, then rotate that 90 degrees and do the same thing again. That's it, that goes into my banneton and then it's already nearly done. So I'm now doing the same process with the second loaf as well. So squeeze the edges together, rotate and do the same thing again. So what we can do now in order to get some more tension is using this stitching technique. This will help the loaves to keep their shape while in the oven. We cover that now with some plastic wrap and this will then go into the fridge overnight. At the next day, it's time for the baking. I have preheated my oven to 250 degrees Celsius. I'm using here 2 pizza steels where I bake the bread in the middle and then I'm having a low pan on the bottom. This is where my water will go into. If you have more questions on that, leave me a comment below this recipe. And then I'm having some parchment paper as well as like a wooden board. So this is my slide board where it's easier to slide the breads into the oven. And then it's time to dump the loaves on this parchment paper, and I'm using here now a lame to score the loaves in a 45-degree angle. My lame isn't very sharp anymore, so I need to replace the razor blade very soon. So this can now go into the oven at 250 degrees Celsius. This is 482 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes with steam. And the steam, we just add some boiling water to the loaf pan on the bottom. After 15 minutes you see the doughs have beautifully expanded in the oven, so it's time to remove the loaf pan as well as the additional baking steel. And this will now bake 30 minutes at 230 degrees Celsius, that's 446 degrees Fahrenheit. After that time we can take our bread out of the oven, and as you expect the crust is very dark. This is what we wanted to achieve, and the smell is really gorgeous. Can't wait to look inside. We cool down the bread for about 2 hours. So let's have a look inside. Wow, look at this open crumb, perfectly fermented. I'm super happy with that shot. And here are some more impressions. You see here the blisters from the long fermentation. You see the dark crust. That looks really nice. Not too much burnt. It has a perfect balance, even though in the camera it looks quite black. Have fun when baking this. Bon appetit. I hope you enjoyed this video. This time I was 100% satisfied. The oat bread is wonderfully integrated, the crust is perfect and smelled like chocolate and coffee. The crumb is wonderfully complex with a mixture of toasted bread and a fruity aroma from the sourdough. The acidity of the sourdough is well integrated and makes this bread taste great. I will definitely be making this bread more often. It could become one of my favorite breads. What is your favorite bread? Please let me know in the comments. If you want to support me and my channel, please like this video, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next videos. I wish you a great day, Eddie, and goodbye.